2023 was an excellent year for video games. The amount of Game of the Year material that was released this year is insane. We had Final Fantasy 16, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the Resident Evil 4 remake, Spider-Man 2, and Pizza Tower, just to name a few. And while I haven't played all of these games, I can see why people love them as much as they do. But for me, my personal Game of the Year has got to go to a game that was released within the very first month of this year. Hi-Fi Rush. Man, I still remember when this game was announced out of nowhere and caught everyone's attention with its beautiful, bright, and colorful cel-shaded art style with so much visual flair. And on top of that, the game was released on the very same day, as if everyone involved knew it would be an instant hit. Honestly, I'm shocked that this game ended up being unknown to the public for its entire development cycle, considering the hype this game could have gotten if they revealed it earlier. It certainly would have gotten me to buy the game on launch day. Before I did, the only gameplay I saw was the Korska boss fight, which, while cool, isn't a very good introduction to the game. It was only when I saw a friend play the game in a Discord call when I learned what the game actually was. A hack and slash with rhythm game elements. And from that point on, I was hooked. The game starts with our protagonist Chai, a college dropout with a broken arm and a clear passion for rock music, about to enter a program called Project Armstrong, where people can augment their bodies or replace parts of themselves with robotic ones. And Chai here is using it to replace his broken arm. However, thanks to the current CEO of Vandalay Technologies meddling with Chai's belongings while attempting to bring a point across, his MP3 player lands on his chest right before the process to replace his arm starts. Because of this, Chai's robot parts now include his MP3 player stuck in his chest, and as a result, he is labeled as a defect and has to defend himself from the security trying to take him out. Thankfully, the MP3 player starts up and augments his robot arm, allowing him to fight back in a unique way. And after completing the first combat scenario, Chai later runs into a cat version of himself? What the fuck? Yeah, so I should really mention that this footage was taken from my live streams where I played the game on Rhythm Master difficulty, which you get after beating the game, and you also unlock costumes as well, so what you see in the cutscenes won't necessarily be what you get when playing the game for yourself. Anyway, Chai runs into a robot cat called 808, who doubles as a mobile camera for a mysterious person who is later revealed to be a woman named Peppermint. She seems to believe that Vandalay is up to no good and Chai could help her, however he's only really interested in getting out alive and tries to push her away when suddenly, Chai's robotic parts form some sort of bond with 808 that forces control of it away from Peppermint. With this, Chai's combat style is further augmented, and he now has a buddy traveling with him. Please ignore all the footage where I clearly already had a wait before this. And Peppermint essentially tells Chai that the mega corporation that is willing to accept practically anyone into their robot part replacement surgery program might actually be evil. No way! Anyways, after defeating the first Vandalay boss, Rekka, we find out that Vandalay is developing a mind control super virus that will affect all the subjects of Project Armstrong, and the only way to shut it down is collecting passkeys from all 6 bosses. And that's all you really need to know about the story going into this video, as the rest of the game can be summarized as the gang search for the next boss and defeat them to get the MacGuffin, as well as recruiting new allies to the team like Macaron and Cinnamon to eventually defeat the CEO of Vandalay, Kale Vandalay. If you haven't noticed it yet, the characters are all named after food and drink, so if this video makes you feel hungry, I will not accept responsibility. The combat is where Hi-Fi Rush really shines. Yes, the fucking game has a fucking hand. Shines! The controls are exactly what you would expect for a hack and slash game. There's light and heavy attacks which can be used to perform different combos, a dash to dodge attacks, a parry to stun enemies and counterattack, and a wide variety of special attacks that require the use of the reverb gauge to use. They range from super moves to deal damage, a simple weak attack that launches enemies into the air but costs less gauge to use, a distraction hologram, and an expensive high damage attack that requires doing a short rhythm sequence to further increase the damage. That was my favorite. But where Hi-Fi Rush stands out from the others in its genre is that everything in the game is synced to the beat of the music, from Chai's attacks to enemy behavior and even the environment itself. And if that wasn't enough, the game includes a toggleable on-screen beat indicator. In this beat-based battle system, light attacks take 1 beat to activate, while heavy attacks take 2. And hitting buttons to the beat, indicated by the music note that appears next to Chai if you're successful, makes you deal more damage, so staying on the beat is heavily encouraged. Not to mention, it's super satisfying. But Chai's not alone in this journey, as he has 3 different companions acting as assists, and they all fulfill different purposes. Peppermint fires dual pistols that hit enemies from far away but deal low damage, destroy enemy shields, stun a group if you hold down the assist button, and knock down those stupid annoying flying enemies that take are so fucking annoying to hit, so you can finally get him with the ground combos that are much easier to hit, and like, fuck these bros! Her extremely short cooldown makes her the most spammable of the assists. Macaron is the powerhouse of the group, but he also has access to a few support options, surprisingly enough, dealing the most damage of all the assists with a ground slam, drawing enemies towards him if you hold down the assist button, can destroy Z-shielded enemies, allowing you to deal damage to them without using up your reverb gauge. However, he has the longest cooldown, so it's best to save him if there's a Z-shielded foe nearby. Corsica doesn't deal damage, but the wind gust she makes allows enemies to be stunned more easily, cause confusion, and put out fires. Although the fire doesn't prevent Chai from doing damage like energy shields and Z-shielding, so it's technically not required to get rid of it, and it's usually best to use her as soon as she's off cooldown just to abuse her ability to debuff enemies. The assists also have a secondary purpose: jam combos. Instead of doing a standard beat hit finisher, you can press the assist button in place of the attack buttons to summon the currently selected character to perform a special finisher that uses up a section of the reverb gauge. Not only does this do more damage, it also lets you continue comboing enemies afterwards and skyrocket your score. Oh my god, look at my score! I've reached 200,000! If you're worried about the enemy dying prematurely during a jam combo, it's not an issue, as once you start a jam combo, if the enemy's health drops to 0, it's put into an overkill state and won't actually die until you stop the combo. Utilizing this feature is the key to making this game bend to your will, and all of these mechanics come together to make a combat system that is so incredibly addictive, fun, and rewarding to get good at. I mean, I beat this game like 7 times so far. It's no surprise I love the combat as much as I do. Although that's not the only reason that this game rocks my socks. The cast of characters in Hi-Fi Rush are so great, man. They have so much personality, are written incredibly well, and have some banger designs. Some of my favorites include our hero Chai, the unlikely hero who dreams of one day becoming a rock star, but also suffers from a severe case of being stupid.
Peppermint and I are gonna kick your ass with your own tech.
Peppermint.
Macaron, former head of R&D, who despite being inhumanly buff, is the only person to be able to destroy Z-shielding, and can even do this, would rather try to resolve the conflict through peaceful means. Cinnamon, a robot created by Macaron, whose complete lack of emotional intelligence and brutal honesty combines to make the greatest burns in the entire game.
Miss Peppermint, please don't confuse Mr. Chai by implying that he is the brains behind the mission.
Exactly!
Zanzo, the new head of R&D, who only really cares about developing new projects without any concern about budgeting, and constantly makes JoJo poses whenever he's on screen. No, I'm not joking, that's legit what he does.
Mr. Chai, was it? That's Mr. Chai.
That's what I just called him.
Okay then.
Corsica, Vandelay's head of security, who starts off incredibly loyal to Vandelay, but ends up betraying them after learning she's being kept in the dark about the truth of Spectra, and joins the team in hopes of returning the company to its former glory, and may in fact own an LG TV with Peppermint. Oh yeah, and one more thing, she's also Kale, the CEO of Vandelay Technologies and the big bad behind the Spectra project, serves his role as a villain really well. Or at least that's what he thinks, as he's without a doubt the most pathetic character in the game, as the second someone doesn't follow along with what he's saying, he gets so upset that he feels the need to explain his thought process to them. And that's not even the peak of his patheticness. That's when his motivation for creating Spectra gets revealed, and basically breaks down when he gets called out for it. Also, he's voiced by Sonic the Hedgehog.
We need people with influence, and you're giving me losers.
Now let me tell you this, if you make a rhythm game and then completely drop the ball in terms of its music, then who is the game even for? Obviously, it's competitive rhythm game players, I mean what? Thankfully, Hi-Fi Rush doesn't fall into that trap, because this soundtrack is amazing! There's nothing but rockin' tunes that get that blood pumping to battle, and as an added bonus, some of these songs are actually taken from actual rock band albums, and these additions go a long way in enhancing the soundtrack, as none of them feel out of place, or like they just pulled random songs out of a hat. But what if you're streaming the game like I am in the footage? Well, you'll have to play the game with the copyright-free songs. Yeah, this is one of the few things I really dislike about this game. The copyright-free replacements in this game are pretty much all inferior to the songs they replace. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not calling them all bad. Some of them I actually enjoy, like Too Big to Fail and Captive Normals. But they all fall into the same trap where they try way too hard to emulate the sound of the original copyrighted song without being said song. but as a result, they come off as underwhelming instead of having their own identity and personality. The song that embodies this problem the most for me is Intruder, the replacement for Invaders Must Die. Now, the latter is a certified banger. I listen to that shit all the time. And the way it's utilized in the game is excellent, giving you this intense feeling of fighting your way through an army, doing everything they can to stop you. But Intruder doesn't have the same intensity the original has. It honestly sounds like there wasn't much effort put into it at all. The song in the penultimate stage has a similar issue. Worrying is a song that not only fits perfectly within the story, but also does a masterful job of pumping you up for the final challenge. By contrast, its replacement, Surfacing, doesn't quite stick the landing, and once again, doesn't really have its own identity. One more thing I find odd about this game is its distribution of the boss fights. Now, if I told you that this game has 12 stages and 6 of them have bosses at the end of them, you'd probably expect them to be distributed like this. After all, it makes sense to evenly spread them out and to not overwhelm the player. However, they're actually spread out like this. The very first 2 stages have bosses, which on a first playthrough, you'll be coming out of those expecting every stage to have a boss fight, only to be hit with a boss drought all the way until the 7th stage where the game suddenly has a boss distribution that makes sense. In the context of the story, it makes sense, but man, you don't even get to fight Zanzo. He just gets killed by a single counterattack by Chai in a cutscene at the end of Chapter 4. You know, where a boss fight would help out with this issue? And with all that complaining out of the way, yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is an amazing experience. I mean, I didn't even mention everything the game has to offer, like Rhythm Master, the difficulty that will instantly kill you if you let your style meter fall below a certain rank. The post-game story, which while not super important, is still neat to have. The Rhythm Tower, a survival mode you unlock after beating the game. The free DLC that adds alternate versions of said Rhythm Tower. What you do in between combat scenarios, which isn't really too unique or special. Or even what fighting the bosses is like. But I feel like this video would go on just a little too long if I went into even more detail about Hi-Fi Rush. Besides, if you couldn't tell from watching the damn video, this truly is my game of the year. Although now that I think about it, I haven't even mentioned the running gag with the coffee machine. You see, it all starts with this log entry in Chapter 3, where
The executives over at S-Curve Incorporated have decided to prematurely cut off this presentation, as Curve has completely forgotten he was supposed to be ending the video. Please make sure to like and subscribe, as he has more content planned for the future now that he has brought his dead channel back from the dead.